Hello there, Jose Rodriguez back again. In this video, I'm going to cover my step-by-step process on how I print to CANSON watercolor paper. So I'm here in Lightroom CC 2015 and I have opened one image that I shot not too long ago. I'm going to go ahead and get it prepped to print to those types of papers. Now let me tell you that there are other brands that practically appear identical to it, and they have the same surface, they have the same weight, and so on, and actually the same printing characteristics. So I'm going to go ahead and press R. I'm going to hit the Shift key, and I'm going to crop that out of focus rock out of the bottom there. Should have paid a little bit more attention when I was shooting. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and use a technique that I normally use for all my landscapes. Let me go ahead and move that up a little bit. Right there. Okay, and this I learned from an individual online, actually on a YouTube channel. And that is to just bring the highlights down, bring the shadows all the way up, and now set the white points by clicking on the Alt key, moving the white slider toward the right until you begin to see some clipping. And do the same thing for your shadows. Now we want to keep our shadows as open as possible when printing to CANSON watercolor paper. It absorbs ink a lot more readily than uncoated paper does, and it tends to block your shadows if you do not keep them slightly open. In other words, a little bit more open than you would normally do for coated papers. So at this point, I'm going to leave things as they are. I may bring down my mid to low tones a little bit. As you can see, I have to adjust my blacks. I'm going to go ahead and increase my clarity quite a bit and increase my vibrance. Now, I could, of course, play around and add some brushes and darken some areas, but I'm just going to leave things as they are just for this demonstration. I'm going to go ahead and take care of my lens correction, and for sharpening I'm going to hit the Alt key, slide the masking all the way to the right until I see just the edges where contrast changes are taking place, and I'm going to crank the sharpening up to the max. And I think for now that's pretty good. I may want to do a little bit of vignetting, maybe. Yeah, like that. Now we go to the print module. And here we're going to pick, now I've experimented with two printers. One is the 3800, which is what I began printing to this paper with, using OCP inks from Germany, and of course using the matte black. The settings will be archival matte paper. Quality will be around 4. We don't want the highest printing resolution, as this paper has quite a bit of dot gain and it will cause dots to bleed or blend together, and that actually has a negative effect on print quality. We're going to pick no color adjustment. Normally you are here. We're going to click on custom, drop down menu, no color adjustment, and this is basically it. Let's pick some custom sizes I have set up. 9x12 is the paper size that I have available. I have already set up my margins. You can go into many other videos on Lightroom on how to set up your margins and cell sizes and all of that. So let's go ahead and we're going to check our bottommost module. We're going to hit print resolution, and this is going to an EPSON. So we're going to type in 360. This is going to be matte. So for our print sharpening, I want to go high in this particular case. And that's again to counteract that effect that this uncoated paper has of producing a little bit more ink spread than a coated paper would. For our profile, we're going to use the standard Pro 3800 watercolor paper. We're going to use relative colorimetric, and at this point you would hit print. Oh, before I forget, make sure that your sheet feeder setting is set to manual rear. This paper needs to be loaded onto the rear manual feeder. Okay, I'm going to show you when I do the portion of the video where we're going to actually see the print being printed. I'm going to go ahead and show you how to load that paper to the rear feeder. It's not that difficult at all, especially for this type of paper. Canvas can be a bear. This paper is quite easy to load. Okay, so now I'm going to go over to the Canon, because a lot of people had questions about the Canon Pro-100, whether it was able to print to this paper successfully or not. We can go ahead and choose photo printing. We're going to go ahead and choose matte photo paper. And we're going to leave it on standard resolution. And here we're going to pick a paper size. And as you can see, we do not have a paper size that matches 9 by 12. Now, we're going to have to go ahead and create a custom size. But let me give you the most important bit of information here. You're going to click on Color Intensity Manual Adjustment, Matching, and choose None. Now we're going to go to Page Setup. We're going to click on Fit to Page. We're going to click on the paper size, go to Custom, and we're going to type in 9.00 and 12.00. And then we're going to hit OK, and we're going to hit OK. And as you can see, the paper size did not change. So now for our printer settings on the Lightroom print module, we're going to change the printing resolution to 300, which is what Canon needs. And we're going to choose Canon Pro-100 Matte Photo Quality 2/3. And we're going to go ahead and print. Now you can feed this paper on the Canon Pro-100 without a problem. Just feed it right on the top feeder and it will work. Just remember not to pile on, a stack of sheets of paper. One at a time will do. Okay, let's go to the printer room now and watch our prints come out of the printer. Okay, I've sent the print job to the Canon Pro-100. Paper has been loaded into the top feeder. Now this printer may go ahead and run a short cleaning cycle. If so, I'll edit that out. If not, looks like we're ready to go. The paper has been pulled in. Now remember, I am printing, telling the driver to not control color. In other words, on the color matching tab, I clicked on none, and then I loaded the print profile or the ICC profile for matte photo paper. And the quality is standard. Now I'm still in the experimentation stage for this printer because remember, we are using dye inks in this printer and they have a tendency to sink into the paper, unlike pigment inks which have a tendency to not be absorbed as deeply into the paper fibers. Now this is uncoated paper, so of course there's nothing preventing any of the ink from being sucked right into the paper. That would not occur, of course, on a coated type paper. Now one little thing that I forgot to do while I was editing this image is, remember, I was using Lightroom CC 2015 and it has a new feature called dehaze. I could have used that to increase the contrast on some of the further away areas located in this area here. The trees are a little bit hazy. Alright, so here we go. This is the print. Now I have to let it dry and then I will go ahead and coat it with my spray. Let me move the camera, lower the exposure so you can actually see it. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and do the one for the Pro 3800 and we'll be back and then I will show you the prints after I have sprayed them. Okay, let's begin with the loading procedure for paper, especially thick paper such as this CANSON paper. I'm going to set up the rear feeder to accept the 9-inch width of this material. And I'm just going to go ahead and push it in. And notice I'm just doing it with one finger until you feel a little bit of resistance. Now the printer has been sleeping, so it's going to take a while for it to wake up. There, you saw it being pulled in. I'm going to go ahead and show you what's happening inside. You can see that the paper has been drawn into the printer. Now the printer is going to locate it. Make sure that the edge is straight. In other words, at right angles to the feed. And once it accepts it, that's it. You're ready to print. So let's go ahead and send the print over to the printer. Okay, the print job has just been sent over to the 3800. The paper was accepted without a problem, and now it's being printed. Now this printer, due to the fact that it's using matte black and actually a very dense matte black for that matter, does produce a very nice contrasty image as opposed to the dye-based printers such as the Pro-100. That's not to say that the Pro-100 cannot possibly produce prints on this paper, merely that the ink set alone has a lot to say about the quality that you get on CANSON or any other of the major uncoated type watercolor papers. I'll go ahead and bring the one done on the Canon. You should see the difference quite readily. You can see that this one is indeed a little bit less contrasty. But that's not to say that once we apply our gloss, or if we were to make custom adjustments on the image file itself before we send it to the Pro-100, that we would not get an excellent print. You may have to increase the contrast somewhat more than you would on an image that's going to be sent to a Pro 3800, 2880, 2400, or any of the other Epson K3 printers. Anyway, so that's it. I'm going to go ahead and coat these, and we'll come back and take a quick look. You can see some color differences, and these are due to the actual profiles themselves. Remember, there is no profile for this type of paper. I'm just basically guessing. I'm using watercolor profile, which is for the watercolor paper from Epson, on this particular paper, and it seems to be a good match. I get very good shadow detail, I get good highlight detail. This is basically the same density as the paper base. The color is great. I have done test prints galore on this paper, on this printer. This is just an experiment, still in the works. Basically, we would need to create a profile specifically for this paper. Who knows, that may actually help the slightly less contrasty results. So again, it's a work in progress, but I just wanted to show you guys that it is indeed possible to print to that Pro-100, even with dye inks, even on this type of paper, which is totally unintended to be used on inkjet printers. So I'll be back in a few minutes. Alright, now here are the two sprays that I tend to use most. This was matte. This is the low odor clear finish by Krylon. It's for art prints such as drawings, pencil drawings, charcoal drawings, watercolor paintings, and so on. This one is gloss. Now, you would think you would not be able to use this on a matte type paper, but you can. Now, this one I would use if my matte paper was coated, because this will not add any extra change in some of the contrast like this one would. On an uncoated paper, especially when the blacks are pretty matte looking, this will add just a tinge of slight luster to the paper. It almost looks like a burrito paper that has a very, very low sheen characteristics. This will increase my contrast a bit, and it will make your prints look even better. So we'll go ahead and use this, and I'll come back as soon as I'm finished. Here's a close-up of the sprayed prints. This is the Canon, this is the Epson, and I want you to see that the spray application did indeed increase the contrast on the actual prints. Now I'm going to show you some of the problems that I've encountered. Okay, and here are the prints after being sprayed. I sprayed a light coat in this direction, followed by a coat in this direction on both prints. This is the Canon, this is the Epson. I see some smudging of ink here and here. Remember, this is a water-based spray, so for the Canon Pro-100, I would probably recommend using the solvent base, in other words, a non-aqueous type spray or water-based spray. I didn't expect that to happen, but here's the proof. It's actually smudging a little bit right there. That, of course, did not occur with the pigment-based print done on the Epson Pro 3800. So more experimentation is required. I will go ahead and continue to play around with the Pro-100, but I will use the more toxic type spray, which is the one I really didn't want to use, but unfortunately I may have to go ahead and do that. Or let the prints dry thoroughly before you even attempt to spray them. You may have to do a very, very light, quick coat and allow that to dry, and then apply a secondary coat if need be.
So far I give the gold star to the Epson combination of Epson K3 inks. In this case it's OCP, but I'm sure the OEM inks would work identical as far as printing to this matte material by CANSON Watercolor. The Pro-100, although I could tweak it and play with profiling this paper, the final result, especially when sprayed with this water-based type protectant spray, is not as good as when using it on the Pro 3800 and K3 pigment inks. Alright, I will be back with more updates on how this begins to work out or how it unravels, and of course I will make that all available to you guys. So until the next time, happy printing and bye bye.